If you're the kind of person who just loves cutting through the noise to get straight to the facts, you are literally in the perfect place. Today, we're setting the stage to dissect 6 of the most famous, most chilling internet mysteries of all time. We've all seen them, right? Those terrifying pixelated images, the endless forum threads, the deep web legends that just kind of keep you up at night. But what actually happens when you peel back the layers of all that digital paranoia? Well, we're going to look right past the myths to reveal the fascinating and honestly surprisingly human real-world explanations behind them. All right, let's just dive right in. We've got 4 main stops today: creepy real-world locations, bizarre digital footprints, elaborate hoaxes and art, and finally, why we prefer myths. Starting off with Section 1, creepy real-world locations. So this is where totally everyday physical spaces get twisted into terrifying modern legends by, well, internet paranoia. To really get this, we've got to look at a very real building in Salt Lake City. Picture this, okay? A brightly painted building with neon green walls and purple doors. The sign says Fun Time Kids Care. But as locals drove past, they started noticing a deeply eerie setup. No child was ever actually seen playing in the fenced yard. The playpen equipment was completely empty and just covered in dust. And even creepier, the windows were entirely blocked out from the inside with thick curtains and faded drawings. I mean, it's the perfect setup for a horror movie, right? Well, naturally, the amateur internet detectives got right to work, and man, the theories escalated so fast. The internet's imagination just ran wild. When people called the business, the phone would ring endlessly or someone would pick up and immediately hang up. The website looked entirely fake. People were absolutely convinced this was a secret front for a criminal cartel hiding money. Others thought, no, it's a hidden spy safe house. But the most popular, and honestly the most disturbing theory, was that this completely blocked out building was a front for an illegal trafficking ring. It got so bad that people actually started showing up in person to harass the building. But then there was this one bizarre clue that literally threw gasoline on the internet's fire: the number 8,000. Some sleuths dug into public import records for the daycare's address and found a shipping log. And get this, it showed that over 8,000 pounds of cheap plastic jewelry had been delivered to this tiny daycare. I mean, why on earth would a daycare need literal tons of plastic rings? Okay, get ready for the big Scooby-Doo reveal here. The truth? It wasn't some dark conspiracy at all. That supposed massive criminal trafficking ring was actually just a retired mom's tiny daycare and her son's side hustle. Seriously. The building was bought by a guy for his elderly mother so she could run a real daycare post-retirement. They didn't need to turn a huge profit, so they only took in a very small handful of kids, which perfectly explains why that big playground was always empty. And those 8,000 pounds of plastic jewelry? The son imported cheap items in bulk to sell online for extra cash and simply used his mom's massive, mostly empty daycare building as a storage warehouse. Case closed. Moving right along to Section 2, bizarre digital footprints. Now we're shifting focus back to the early web, a time when strange websites and anonymous posts spawned these massive digital wild goose chases. First up is a website that absolutely terrified early internet users, mortis.com. Mortis is actually Latin for death. If you went to this site, you were met with a completely pitch-black screen with only that single word right there in plain white text. Clicking it brought up a mysterious login prompt. But when amateur coders dug into the server, they found huge amounts of locked files. They even traced server connections to physical addresses for dentists and security firms that turned out to be empty lots, or, shockingly, registered to dead people. People were absolutely convinced, 100% sure, that this was a government database or some international spy ring operating right out in the open. The actual truth? It was just a totally normal IT guy named Thomas Ling. The massive hidden data? Those were just his personal file backups. And the other weird sites linked to him, featuring chess pieces and monsters, literally just personal web design hobbies for his fantasy games. He named the site Mortis simply because he thought it sounded edgy and cool. When thousands of internet detectives started trying to hack his server, he got annoyed. He tried telling them to stop, but when they didn't, he just took his own site offline. So no FBI raid, just a very annoyed IT worker. Next up, we've got a mystery that lasted a whole decade. Starting back in the late 2000s, these massive walls of all-cap spam started popping up in the comment sections of cooking forums, news sites, and YouTube. A single paragraph would jump wildly from global government conspiracies straight into praising the, and I quote, unbelievable taste of Captain Coochie's key lime pie. Because these rambling comments persisted for over a decade, and occasionally even replied to users, people figured out pretty quickly that it wasn't just a simple, standard bot. So of course people hypothesized that international spies were using key lime pie as some secret criminal code word. They even discovered that Captain Coochie's was a real restaurant in North Carolina that had closed down years prior. But the reality? It's actually incredibly touching. The eccentric former owner of the restaurant, Oswald Pillay, proudly went by the nickname Captain Coochie. Now, Oswald was battling severe late-stage multiple sclerosis. In his free time, he simply enjoyed browsing the web and manually typing out his rambling thoughts. He was just mixing his worldly opinions with his fond, really proud memories of the pies he used to bake. No spies, just a proud man sharing his legacy. All right, now let's talk about one of the absolute biggest internet legends out there, the backrooms. Back in 2019, a photo of this empty, fluorescent-lit room with yellow wallpaper spawned massive horror lore about a maze existing entirely outside of reality. Nobody knew where the photo actually came from, but a Discord group managed to crack it by hunting its digital fingerprint instead of focusing on the image itself. Here's how they did it. First, a 2011 4chan archive revealed the original file name. Second, that exact file name perfectly matched the naming convention of an early 2000s Sony digital camera. Third, a researcher found a 2019 tweet linking to a defunct Habytown store in Wisconsin. And finally, using the 2003 Wayback Machine, they managed to uncover the original photos right there on that store's old website. And this brilliantly illustrates the power of focused research. The most terrifying, inescapable maze on the internet was literally just a mundane furniture store. The owner was simply snapping a series of photos to document the progress of a renovation into a hobby town way back in 2003 and uploaded them just to show customers the new space. All right, on to Section 3, elaborate hoaxes and art. So far, we've looked at accidental mysteries, but what about the ones purposefully designed to trick us or entertain us? If you were exploring scary videos a few years back, you probably came across Blank Room Soup. It's this low-quality, deeply unsettling video of a man sitting totally alone in a white room. He's crying heavily while eating soup out of a large bowl. Suddenly, two people wearing giant, dirty, cartoonish mascot heads walk in, and one begins slowly patting the crying man's back. Because there was zero context, the internet immediately jumped to the conclusion that this was found footage from the deep web of a kidnapping victim being mocked by his captors. But, eagle-eyed viewers eventually started picking apart the footage, and the clues strongly point away from an actual crime. For starters, the camera isn't shaky at all. It's mounted on a steady stand. The lighting in this supposedly hidden torture room is actually shockingly professional. But the biggest clue? Those mascot costumes, known as Ray Ray, were actually created by a professional animator. While he claimed they were stolen, internet sleuths found out that his sister is in a theatrical rock band called Stolen Babies, and he's heavily involved in their stage theatrics. Turns out, these exact costumes frequently appeared in their live shows. It is pretty much universally agreed now that the video was simply an elaborate art project or a viral marketing stunt for the band. Then we've got the legendary John Tater. Back in the early 2000s, this user showed up claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036, sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer. What made this hoax so incredibly legendary wasn't his photos of a heavy metal time machine box chilling in the back of a car, or even his dark future predictions that obviously never happened. It was his technical knowledge. He claimed his future timeline specifically needed the IBM 5100 to fix a massive software bug because it had a hidden hardware feature to translate very old computer languages. And the crazy part? Computer experts verified it. He was absolutely right. That obscure, undocumented feature actually existed. Since internet searches were so basic back then, it seemed practically impossible for a random person to know such a highly obscure piece of tech history. But an investigation into a company called the John Teeter Foundation uncovered the real story. The leader of the foundation was a businessman named Larry. And guess what? Larry had a brother who was a highly experienced computer scientist. The truth is that John Teeter wasn't a time traveler at all. He was just a really, really well-crafted character created by two brothers, leveraging deep, super niche knowledge of vintage tech and physics to create the ultimate internet hoax. Finally, Section 4, why we prefer myths. So what do these 6 solved mysteries actually tell us about ourselves as consumers of information? Out of all these terrifying, massive internet mysteries we just broke down, literally 0 of them were actually supernatural, or a deep web cartel, or an international spy ring. 2 of them were elaborate art projects or hoaxes. But the vast majority, 4 out of the 6, boiled down to mundane, everyday, incredibly human eccentricities. A guy wanting an edgy name for his personal server, a grandmother running a tiny daycare, a store owner documenting renovations, a sick man proud of his pie. And here is the macro takeaway we really need to absorb. The internet acts as an incredibly powerful echo chamber. We, as humans, have this deeply ingrained desire to find grand cinematic conspiracies in the gaps of our understanding. When we see something we don't immediately comprehend, like an empty daycare playground or a weirdly lit photograph, we just don't assume the boring truth. Instead, we collectively build this macabre, modern folklore. And I think that leaves us with one final, really provocative question to consider as you log off today. When we're scouring the web, looking for clues, decoding spam, and analyzing pixels, are we really searching for the truth? Or, deep down, are we all just desperate for a really good story? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking the right questions, and I'll catch you next time.